Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to today's podcast. This is a space where we explore the profound questions that begin to form in our minds as we grow. Questions about who we are, our purpose, and what truly defines us. I'm your host, Rahul, and as a Muslim, I believe these questions are deeply connected to both our spiritual journey and our intellectual growth. Today, I am blessed to have two amazing guests with me who will help us explore these topics from different perspectives. First, we are honoured to have Mr. Jonathan Brown, a lecturer from Dundee University, whose expertise in education and philosophy, and he will add an enriching perspective to our conversation. Mr. Jonathan, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And next, we have Mr. Sahil Adim, an educational psychologist and a speaker whose work often revolves around the nature of identity and purpose. Mr. Sahil, Jazakallah khair for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So today, we'll discuss three core questions that often arise during the teenage years, a time of immense change and reflection. These questions are like, who am I? What is my real identity? And what is my real purpose? So, we'll approach these questions from religious, philosophical, and psychological perspectives. I'll serve as your guide, but most of this conversation will be driven by our distinguished guests. So, let's dive right in. So, to begin with our first segment, our first question is, who am I? This question lies at the heart of our understanding of ourselves. So, Mr. Sahil, how would you approach this question of who am I?
This is as deep as philosophy can go. Okay, who am I? Okay, so I hope you understand the word philosophy, the difference between philosophy and psychology. Because philosophy explores the psychology. Okay, it's not the other way around.
Yeah.
So, who am I is a question of philosophy, not psychology. It's going to pay a lot of inroads into your psychology. It's going to make you behave that you're going to understand the meaning of who you are. So, a shorter answer right now, so that we can begin this whole conversation, that you are a unit of a very big system. If you don't understand the big system, you won't understand who you are. We, you, me, everybody else, 7 billion, 8 billion now planet, and the billions of people who've been around. It's part of a system. Think of it like a wave going to a certain point. Okay, and we are a unit of that whole system. And hence we need to be a part of this, understand it and try and contribute as much as, I can not just contribute, drive the system.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's your innate God-given disposition. That's why a lot of inner callings actually, whoever goes through that and understands the inner voices, hears the same voices, no matter where he's from, what kind of religion. And he's gotta take over and try and drive towards a certain goal. The mutual definition of good, the mutual definition of evil, trying to, be a part of the battle and win it every single time. For that, you need to get those capabilities and, learn knowledge structures and understand skill structures, try and see whether you can actually drive your self-esteem of how much knowledge you have or how much skill you have. And am I actually even being a part of that bigger fight, the big fight. So who you are is just a unit of a system. Understand the system and you'll know who you are.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Jonathan, coming from your perspective, how would you approach this question of who am I?
Yeah, I love that answer, actually. I thought that was a lovely answer. I think, so Rahul, the question again was, who am I?
Yeah.
Is that right? Goodness. There's so many ways we can answer that. I think, for me personally, and it's lovely to be here to speak as myself as well as a lecturer, I think, we are children of God. And I think that pattern that you were talking about, part of that pattern, that tapestry is like taking on that likeness and participating in that. So that would be a perspective that I would have. We're also like an individual identity. And I think who we are is like that expression of, what is within us and then what's without us. And for me, I'm doing a PhD at the moment, which is like a really long essay, right? Yeah. It's a lot of studying. And it's around well-being, what I'm investigating. And one of the key things that I'm finding in my research is that our well-being is really based on a relationship. And it's relationship between us as subjects, as individuals, and then reality, you could call it, the world as it is. And we have to find these harmonious ways of being, right? So for example, if I just kept eating as much junk food as I would want, that's not going to be a harmonious way of being, because the way the world is made, if I live that way, it's going to make me ill, right? It's going to put on extra weight. I'm going to have health conditions. So I have to find in myself a way to have the best relationship with reality. Reality would be a big word, a word I'd be more comfortable saying might be with God, right? And so I think who we are then is individuals who are part of this pattern, this tapestry. And I think we're on a journey of trying to like establish that relationship. And then I suppose a big part of then in with that identity is what is that thing we're having a relationship with? And I think maybe a lot of what we'll speak about is as we move through our lives, there's lots of things that are put up in front of us as this is the thing you should have a relationship with that will make meaning in your life, that will make your life good. That's another big philosophical question. What is the good life? So is the good life a life if you have a relationship with lots of money? Is the good life a life when you have a relationship with lots of success? Is it when you get lots of good grades at school? Is it when you're really popular? Does that make sense? And so we have these things we have a relationship with. So I think we are people who were made for relationship. I think that who we are as a person comes about as a product of those relationships. And a really important question for me is, okay then, so what's the best thing that we can have a relationship with?
That's very nice. So,
Really? Oh,
does that pass?
Sink it into it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
That's good.
yeah. So as Muslims, we also think of this question in the context of our fitra. So our natural disposition, and how does that align with what you're saying?
Oh, okay. Well, you need to explain fitra. I'm not a Muslim, so I'm afraid I don't know that concept.
It's a natural disposition.
Yeah.
Universal disposition of every human child that ever was going to be born or was born. There's a common disposition.
Okay.
That a human child is going to behave according to that element of the basic disposition of good, trying to achieve good, understanding why it is, what bad is, what evil is, why not to do or commit evil. Your natural basic disposition of the human mind.
Okay.
That's fitrah.
And that's fitra. And then, so what was the question then with this?
So how would you align with what you're saying, with fitra?
Oh, okay. So, well, we've got an education psychologist here.
That gyroscope of morality is actually sitting on that disposition, right?
Yeah.
And it's so common in every human being.
Yes.
It has to teach morality to any religion or creed or a culture. They all have it.
Ethic emerges, yes.
Yeah, it emerges from that gyroscope. It's just revolving, to and fro, good and evil, yin yang, going on.
Yes.
But to naturally be repulsed by evil and to naturally get attracted towards good is the fitrah.
Oh, so it's that guide, it's like a navigation thing.
that gyroscope,
thing.
yeah.
Interesting. So, I guess what I'm thinking of then, this is a new concept for me, but what I'm thinking of as we have an education...
Yeah, well, in the Torah, the Old Testament,
yes,
the literal verses that God actually, every child is born in the image of God.
Yes.
That image of God is the fitrah.
Okay, that like...
Genesis, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's really interesting.
That's actually Matthew's as well, and also the Quran, the same verse.
Oh, is that right, really?
Yeah.
And so, but the word here is fitra, and that means like the inclination, the image of God. Yeah. Well, so then I think, so here's an interesting one for you. Well, I was actually just speaking to your mum about this. We talk about having a purpose or aim in our life, right? And when we look at the word for sin in the Bible, we can have in our culture nowadays, we can think of sin as a wagging finger. Like all those naughty things you shouldn't do. Okay, and we just think it's a set of rules. But when it was originally written, the word that was used came from archery. And it actually was about aim. So it meant to miss the mark, to aim poorly. And so I think when we think about sin like that, then there's things that when we aim for them, when we aim poorly, they don't do well by us. So, for example, I would often joke, do you know what cryptocurrency is? Like Bitcoin and everything.
Yeah.
So I joke with my wife that I could make an aim for my life being a crypto billionaire, and I could take all of our money and I could gamble it on cryptocurrency. That might not be the best thing to aim at in my life, but there's other things that in our lives that when we aim for them, it pulls us together. Right? I wonder if that's like this concept then. But at my university, like your mum did, folk will give up a career and they'll come and do a new career and they'll make a new aim. They'll have something else they're making their goal because they think pursuing this thing is going to pull us together. And so I think that for me then, there's this idea of it's looking at what is the best thing to aim at? What's the highest thing that we can aim at? So when we're aiming for it, that likeness, that likeness to God, that image bearing that we have is continually and progressively coming forward. You mentioned the yin yang. It's actually a symbol I really like. So we've got those two phases, I don't know, order and chaos, or spirit and law. But the line that goes down the middle, the Taoists call that the divine path or the heroic path, right? And I think that's because as people, when we move through our life, we need to be constantly sensing between what's needed here. Do I need to give like grace and flexibility? Do I need to have more structure and rules in my life? And I think as we follow that, that takes us on this journey of self where hopefully we're becoming more like the image that I think that we were set to bear. That was quite a wandering answer. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
That's fine. Yeah, so now we're going to move on to our next segment. It's called, what is my real purpose? So that's a question that, as a Muslim, I know that Allah says in the Quran, I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me. So, Mr. Saho, how does psychology guide us in aligning our purpose with this higher calling?
Understand the word prophet. You understand the word prophet?
Yeah.
What is it?
Messenger.
No. So you break it down. What is a prophecy?
Like the story of a prophet.
No, that's not. A prophecy is an event in the future, and you can tell right now. It's called a prophecy. Okay, something that you can tell is about to happen. Okay, whoever can tell that is a prophet.
Yeah.
Okay, in the dictionary. Now you will see from the Old Testament, okay, the New Testament, and the Quran. You see a list of prophets, and understand. Okay, I'm trying to build up the very reason for purpose first, so that you can understand how important this word is. You can't just take it casually, okay? You're 14 now, coming in the game now. Actually, you should have been a couple of years ago. You're 12, you're 13, 14. You need to really ground yourself into the word purpose. Because the absolute difference between good people and bad people right now in the world, and it's ever been, is that the good people understood the word purpose. So there are only two kinds of human beings you'll find. One with the big, greater purpose, and one who aimlessly, wandering around the planet, living day to day or year to year or event to event, and that changes their morality and everything. And sometimes they're really good, but they're not tied or anchored to a purpose. So you cannot rely on their good.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how important the word purpose is. So that's why I started with the word prophet. Okay. Now, there are two kinds of prophets. And both of them do the same thing. They're prophesizing the future. Some of those prophets are sent by God Almighty Himself, guides them, literally tells them what's going to happen in the future. So you open the Torah, you find all the prophecies of what's going to happen. Okay. You find the New Testament, you see the book of Revelation, all about what's going to happen in the end. In the end, see? Right? This word inside your mind. The end. So these prophets are talking about the problems of the end, and they're just trying to solve them right now. So the story had an end, and they know the end. They're telling everybody the end, way ahead in time. Okay, it's going to happen thousands of years now, if not hundreds. And every prophet is trying to tell them this is the bigger problem, and your purpose is to make sure that problem doesn't happen. Okay, purpose. And they try and build, parenting models, making knowledge go through every woman and man so that their children will bear that knowledge, trying to equip themselves, not let that thing happen. And they're good prophecies as well, okay? So they're trying to make sure that they do happen, and there's evil that's about to happen. They make sure that, kids are prepared, women are prepared, girls are prepared, boys are prepared. Now that's one kind of prophets. From Adam alayhi salam, from Adam to Muhammad bin Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Yeah.
All of these prophets did the exact same thing. Foretelling the future, foretelling everything, and reverse engineering a certain message so that that thing wouldn't happen, or it can get delayed as much as everybody can muster up to delay that event. And there are other prophets as well. Those are not guided by God, but they're guided by their fitrah. Okay, they're not sent by God. We're all sent by God, right? We came because of God, right? But they did not go through the Bible or the Torah or the Quran. They go through their own disposition, and they try to solve those problems as well. Be it Aristotle, be it Socrates, be it Hume, Descartes, be it Immanuel Kant, all those philosophers. They start pondering over what is going on, and they try and come up with the solution to a problem that they're actually yelling about in their books. Okay, from a person's problem to a group's problem, from a local problem to a global problem. Read their books, you'll find out. They're doing the exact same thing. They're writing the problem statement, they're trying to solve it. Now, they have a lot of fancy words. A lot of people don't read their books. But literally, they're doing the job of a prophet, which is not sent by God for this very purpose. In other words, when you look at these people, you'll find out that every human being was sent for the same purpose. Some of them are guided directly by God and given books. Some of them do not get books. They're guided directly through their fitrah. Okay? And these gods and prophets are the fastest, quickest, and most optimal help that we can get. Okay? So this story had a start, a middle, and an end. Okay? Every book written by God, or every book not written by God, by those prophets we just named, also had an end. Okay? Now it takes time, NASA. What are they talking about? An end. A meteor is going to come in. And it's most probably going to come in someday, right? And it's going to end. So let's just go to Mars, terraform a planet. Everyone's talking about the end. As soon as you use the word end, all of a sudden, the word purpose comes to play. Because if there is no end, there is no purpose. Okay? If there is no end, there is no purpose. Make sure you write that down somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, every prophet is talking about the end, regardless of whether he's directly guided by God or guided by his fitrah, hence God, right? Sorry. So, you need to see whether you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. Because all the books you're going to read is going to have two kinds of people, part of the problem, part of the solution. If you know the end, you will understand what the solution is and how to become a part of that solution.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You really do? Well, can I widen your age to actually understand the depth of what I'm saying? So you see the tears of every prophet sent by God, of how deeper they felt the pain of every human being, because they could see all those human beings. God not just gave them visions, He took them on literal journeys to see hell and heaven, to see human beings going through whatever they are going to go through, the end. That's the day of judgment, right? So that day of judgment is the end, the ultimate end. So the Torah starts with that, the Bible starts with that, and the Quran starts with that. If you're not going to stop in the end, you're not going to understand your purpose. Because if some movie, some story is never going to end, then there is no point of having any kind of purpose. I could be good in my own definition. I could be bad in your definition and still feel good in my own definition. It's called moral relativism. Okay? Whoever does not have that visioning of the end in mind, as soon as you leave the day of judgment out, when you take out the day of judgment from the equation, all of a sudden the definition of morality is relative. So you could feel good and be good in your own books, a hero of your own movie, and a classical villain in everybody else's movie. And you get away with that because you know what? Both of these parties don't believe in the end. So if you have an end, very high resolution end, understanding what's going to happen there. You're going to reverse engineer a purpose of your own time. Why were you born in this time? What kind of problems are going to add to the actual problem in the end? Did you contribute towards the good? Did you equip yourself to perform against evil? All of this becomes part and parcel of your actual purpose. Because from Adam till you, from Adam till the last boy is going to be born right before the day of judgment, has the exact same purpose. There are no two different purposes. The ultimate purpose is the same. For you, me, my kids, Adam al-Islam's firstborn till Adam al-Islam's lastborn will have the same purpose, because there's a purpose of why he came here. And he was sent here to save all humanity from the ultimate end. Okay? We call that ultimate end the calamity. It's hell.
Yeah.
Okay? And people are not going to make it our 999 to the ratio of 1 in every 1,000. Okay? Same thing with the Torah. Same thing in Talmud. Same thing in the Gospel. Same thing in the Quran. Most of them are not going to make it. So we got to save as many as we can to add to that ratio of 1 to 1,000. You understand?
Yeah. Yeah.
A big job. Yeah, that's the purpose.
That's it. Thank you very much. And so, Mr. Jonathan,
Yes.
how do philosophers and educators approach the concept of purpose? And do you see parallels between the views and the religious perspective?
Yes, I think so. And I think that was a really good answer about the ultimate question. I think the purpose, to your point about moral relativism, people are trying to decide what is the highest good. Where do we get our meaning from? Where do we get our purpose from? Maybe another way to think about it is, and again, your mum and I were just speaking about this, we're all looking for something to worship. And people are choosing different things that they're going to have as their highest good in their life that they think is going to give their life purpose. So for some people, it might be being popular. For some people, it might be, I don't know, being really successful in one particular field. But they think this is the thing that when I devote myself to it, it's going to give me purpose in life. Do you remember earlier we were talking about sin could be aiming at the wrong thing? Or if there's some of the things that we can aim at that would make our lives go poorly, and they can be things that we can aim at that pull us together. That could be something that's the best thing to aim at, that would be the right thing to be in the highest place. So when we aim at that, it's going to guide us through our life. So I think purpose, whether you're a philosopher or an educator, it's people trying to decide what deserves to be at the very, very top of the pile. What's the thing that if we organise everything, you could think about it like this, having a flow chart. Have you ever seen these charts you get in magazines sometime, and it says like, you're like, what kind of superhero are you?
Yeah.
You know, you're like this or you're like this, and you've got like these branching diagrams. Well, we've got things, and we have to decide, well, which is the most important thing? And we can move that all the way up till we get to the top. Then from the top, that cascades down, and that helps us find our purpose. So I think in education and philosophy, I'm reading a lot of philosophy right now. I'm thinking about well-being, and people are trying to decide what belongs up there. And I think at the moment, what we're having in our world at the moment is people are seeming to think that they can just decide, and then the world will fit around their ideas. So let me give you an example. There's a bookshop in Dundee, the university, the town where my university is, and I would love to go to that bookshop, okay? And I would walk around the bookshop and I would take pictures of all the books I was going to buy for cheaper on Amazon, okay? Now, I can't live in a world where there's bookshops if I don't buy my books there. Yeah, so I have to like make a sacrifice. I have to pay for slightly more expensive books in order for there to be a book there and to be a bookshop there. So I think when we go through our lives, we need to be thinking about what is the contribution that we need to make or that we can make in order to keep the world blossoming or moving forward. So for example, people might say, I think that I can live this way and the world will keep working. But if I say I think I can just go to bookshops but buy books cheaply on Amazon, the world won't work that way. The bookshops will just stop existing. So what we've kind of lost, I think, within ourselves is that there is a relationship between us and the world, and we can't say to the world, you're going to be this way. I can eat whatever food I want and my body will still be healthy. I can do whatever I want with my money and things will still be what will work and be fair. That I can do whatever I want with my body and my body will still be healthy. I don't think that's how the world works. And I think we've kind of fallen out of relationship with God, with that which is higher. Here's another way to think about it. You know, the environmental crisis that we have at the moment, right? So there's like lots of pollution and things like that in the world. Well, it's wonderful. You could think, because I teach science at university, so you can think everything that's in the world, you can kind of put into two groups. You can have the natural things that you'd find if you went for a walk, natural things in the world, and then you can have synthetic things, and those are things that we can make as people with our brains. And it's wonderful that we can make those things. It's wonderful that we can make these materials. But what we've learned from this crisis, like plastic, for example, it's great that we can make plastic. We can wrap things in it, we can hold things in it, we can like make tents out of it. It's wonderful. But we can't make it to any extent that we want. If we just make all the things that we want and don't pay attention to the world, we end up with pollution. That's what that's literally called, pollution. It damages the environment that we're trying to live in. And I think in that sense, you could say this pollution that we're having is because we've fallen out of relationship with the world. Yeah? And so I think in our lives at the moment what's happening is I think we're falling out of relationship with that which is higher, God. And I think our purpose in some big way is to try and have that relationship, right, with God. There was a storybook I read a few years ago, and it was based in Scotland. It was called the Dragante series, I think. And you know, stories have kind of magical elements in them. And the magical element in this was that your actions either sucked the magic that was in the world out of the world and sort of sped along the end of things, or your actions put magic back into the world and help sustain it and make it a good place to be. And I think that's a big answer for what our purpose is. We need to live in such a way that we're in relationship with that which is higher, because I think when we do that, we're contributing to the world. We're helping. Goodness, how would I explain it? We're helping do God's work, which is creating and cultivating. That's one of the things we learn about God in the book of Genesis. He's a creator and a cultivator, and we're made in his image. So I think that's part of what we can do. So I think to answer your question, I think philosophy, I think they're trying to decide what goes in the highest place. I think at the moment, culture has decided whatever I feel inside is in the highest place. But I think things like the environmental crisis show us that there needs to be that there is a relationship. And actually, we need to be in the lower, more humble position. And we say, okay, world, what are you like? And I'll conform to you. And I think it's our purpose is to sort of develop that relationship.
That's brilliant.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, moving on to our third and final segment. It's a question that might seem simple, but there's a lot into it. So, this question is, what is courage? So, Mr. Sahel, how would you define courage? What do you think courage is?
Assuming that I know what courage is, okay? So, let's go deep inside the system, okay? There's a certain sector of energy inside your brain, okay? It makes the whole body go into this mode, okay? So there's like this courage mode, and then there's this fright mode, okay? Now the courage mode has a lot more fright than the fright mode. Okay, that's the trick. And a lot of people miss out on the fact that, you know, they think that courage means no fear. Courage actually has a lot more fear, okay? So much fear that, you know, your regular fright mode won't even have that, a trace of it. So, first, understand what courage is. Courage is to understand your fear, know where it's coming from, and know what is really damaging you. That's the actual courage. Now, that could be fighting a guy in the street, or confronting your father or mother not doing the right thing when they're not doing it, and you have to have enough courage to confront them. Or go walk up to your school principal and tell them that, you know, I don't believe in the policy. It's not for the according to a vision of the whole system of education, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one day you have to make the movements, okay, and make the change. So both of them come from the same part of the body. Actually, there's an organ for it. Okay, so you see those tentacles on the cockroach, those antennas.
Yeah.
You know what they're for?
What?
There's sensing danger. Okay, obviously the cockroach does a lot more than just sense danger, but that's primarily the function of the tentacle. We have those tentacles too, like literally the same tentacles. The two tentacles inside our brain, they call amygdalas. They sense danger from everywhere. Okay, now as much as they can sense danger, if you understand that you're training to paying the price for confronting that danger, that toll that you want to pay, you need to pay, okay, that follow through is called courage. That I am going to pay that toll, be it my life. If it comes down to that, be it my life. Because if I don't do it, the price that you'll have to pay for living with that luggage that you're going to wake up every night thinking that, if I had done the right thing, you feel so less of a man and a human being of not doing the right thing. That luggage is way more. Okay, that cancer is way more it's going to take a lot more toll. It's going to ruin not just your life, but your dependents, your friends and your family, because you're going to crack your mind. It's going to break your personality, and you're going to lose your confidence in life and become, a follower of any and every system. You're not going to be able to stand tall in front of your own self. And whoever cannot stand tall in front of the mirror, he ruins everybody's esteem, especially his kids. So in any given chance, think about it. The first chance you're going to get when you move out of this room, of doing the right thing, you can do the math on the price, and you make yourself able to pay that price. That capability to become able to pay that price, that's courage. And trust you me, a lot of times it's going to ask as your literal life as the price. Okay, like literally. So if you're willing to pay that price, most of the times, that's not going to be the price. You're going to do a lot better than most of the human beings because, they don't train themselves to pay that price. Mm-hmm. So be it saving somebody's life or somebody's reputation, somebody's, property, or, holding up the law somewhere, stopping somebody from breaking the law. Yeah. All of that requires that math that you do. What's the price I'm willing to pay? And the more price you're willing to pay, the more courageous you are. So by the end of the day, whoever has done the math better and has prepared himself to pay the ultimate price is the guy who's going to be the most courageous. And everyone's going to actually get under him. It is such an attractive trait in human beings that we all, think about it, 14-year-old man you are, everyone needs, God put this demand of courage inside everybody. So as human beings, we all need the God at the top to be the most courageous. Actually, most of the time you find out that most of the people who are not on the top are only in the bottom or under that guy because of the fact that they don't have enough courage. He followed through on his morals, on his decisions. They couldn't. And we all need our leaders to be able to pay the price given any chance they're ever going to get. If they are going to stop or hesitate for even a second, we strip them of their leadership. That is such a crystal clear, litmus test of a human being, whether he's developed or not as a leader. And you need to be a leader as a father, as a husband, as a teacher, as a man walking on the street. You need to be in a position to put your life on the stake for any and every human being in any and every situation where where anything's going to be at stake. You're the first man to the ball. First man. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are going to be a lot of people who will be thinking about, okay, and they've done the maths, but they'll hesitate for a second there. But the one guy is going to be the first drop of the rain, and even if everybody follows, it's not going to amount to the courage of that one guy who was the first drop of the rain. Okay? So you need me to be courageous if your little sister is in danger, and you don't need me to just keep staring, start calling the police, and whatever. You need me to jump. That's so deep. It's so real. You need me to be the first man to jump and save your sister, to save her from the bus. Okay? Or any kind of trouble. Even though I'm not related to you, you need every human being to save your sister and your little ones. Right? So courage is a natural demand. It's not a luxury. You're not a human being if you don't have courage. But most of the people will never have it. Because they do the math wrong. They try and save themselves and the price of everybody else's. Like literally, they can let people die in front of them and save their one life, and thousands will die, and they won't do anything. See the kind of math human beings do? See how powerful this selfishness is? Understand how powerful that is. No, understand it. Think of your sister. Imagine her being in trouble. Your sister is 6, 7. Think of it. I know there's no doubt that you love her, right? Now think of her being in a trouble where she could lose her life. And now think of how low that human being is who would not sacrifice his for her. Yeah?
Yeah.
So weird, isn't it? People who are not even related by blood, they have to give up their life for people, strangers, total strangers, jump to save up somebody, even though they don't know how to swim, but they just can't see the other person in trouble. You know what I'm saying? How come we absolutely love, we absolutely demand that sacrifice from random strangers, man? How come? Think about it, okay? Spend the rest of your life thinking about it. That you demand total strangers to jump in the water, the deep side of the pool, to save your sister. Okay?
Yeah.
That is the bond between all human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're supposed to do it even for animals. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Even for animals, we're supposed to do that. A human being is a way higher, commodity. So, understand what courage is, why courage is, and who is courageous. These are the 3 things.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's like the ultimate prize that we all, we have gavels in our hands. Passing wardings about total strangers. Not even being human beings, disqualify you as human beings. You didn't jump for my sister or anybody else's kid. Why didn't you jump? This is so natural. It's built into every little cell of my body and yours.
Wow.
I know.
That's great. So, Mr. Jonathan, how would you define courage?
Yeah, well, I love that idea about sacrifice. It's interesting. I've been thinking about where in culture we're apprenticed to sacrifice. Like, where do we learn to do that? Where do we learn to see the small things that we can do? There's an idea that, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Right? Well, we often say that practice makes permanent, right? And one of the things that we know about neuroscience, which is like the science of our brains, is that the things that we practice, the more we practice them, we could think about little pathways getting made in our brain, and those becomes more established and more firm. So what that means is the things that we practice are the things that we become, right? And so I think for us, that call to courage is a call to practice in very small ways courageous acts. So for example, sacrifice. We want to be able to sacrifice and do something heroic, like rescue your sister. But one of the places I think that comes from is small sacrifices daily. It's like building a muscle. So let's give you an example from my family, okay? I would say this to one of my sons all the time, who will remain nameless, but he knows which one he is, okay? When he finishes his bit of toast and he leaves his plate on the table and he doesn't go and put it in the dishwasher, do you know what he's doing? Waiting for someone else to pay the price. Waiting for someone else to sacrifice their time to clean the dish. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And I say to my son, if you want to be able to be courageous, to offer big sacrifices later, you actually need to value the small things that you can do now. So be a person that looks for the small difference that you can make and don't look down on that. So get accustomed to saying, let me take care of that. Let me do that. We started off by saying we're part of this big pattern. And I think part of the pattern that we're part of is that we're cultivators and creators, that we're made to care for and to tend and to look after so that things grow and flourish. I was out for a walk the other day and I was praying and I was praying about this and that, different things, and I walked past some rubbish on my street and I saw it and I thought, I don't want to touch that, and I kept walking and I felt God say to me, if you won't pick it up and make it better, who will pick it up and make it better? And this is such a small thing. It was a dirty crisp packet, and you know, I was 10 meters away before I eventually thought, I'm going to turn around and pick that up. But at that point, there was someone walking behind me. And now I thought, this person's going to think I'm weird because I walked 10 meters past the crisp packet that clearly wasn't mine and then walked back and picked it up. But I felt the challenge was, don't think you'll magically have the courage to make big changes in the world if you can't make small changes in the world. And do you know what? There's a wonderful word. You know the word responsibility? Yeah. There's a famous writer and he took that word and he split it into two parts. Responsibility, our ability to choose our response. And that's something that we all have. We all have an ability to choose our response. And so the other place I think courage comes from is from thinking. So my son, when I say to him, buddy, you're just giving this job to someone else. You could pay the price and get this job done. Why are you not doing it? It's often just because he's not thinking. And actually, part of what we need to do to cultivate courage is we need to have habits in our lives where we think about the kind of people that we want to be. So there's some interesting studies about people live up to their values when they remember them. So you've got to think, why in different faith traditions do we have things that we wear or look at or do every day? It's like reminding of ourselves, who is it I want to be again? What is it I want to stand for? One of the best things that my wife does in my life is that she reminds me of who I want to be, because actually she's very good at being the same person. So we're talking about courage. There's another important word we can talk about, and it's integrity, right? And integrity comes from, well, you know, in high school maths, we've got whole numbers, they're called integers, and then we've got fractional numbers, and we've got decimal numbers, and those are numbers that have been broken into parts. So you've got a number that's a whole thing, or you've got something that's broken into parts. And integrity comes from that. It's when it's a whole thing. So it's when you as a person are one thing in your life. So whether you're by yourself and you see a bit of rubbish and you think, I'm going to pick that up, or when you're with other people and you maybe feel like you should, you do the right thing, you pay the cost. And I think that's like training, where you learn to be courageous, where you develop the muscles to be courageous. I heard someone speak and they said, you know, you've got to think about what is it that you've practiced so much that you're ready to do it automatically. And I used to say to some of my primary 5 girls, I have to say, they would all start falling out with each other in primary 5, primary 6. And I would tell them about practice, how if you practice your Spanish, you would get good at Spanish. And if you practice your piano, you would get good at piano. And I'd say, if you practice saying horrible things to each other in the playground and giving each other horrible looks, the things that you're going to get good at is saying horrible things and giving horrible looks, right? So we need to think about what we're practicing. So I think part of courage is being prepared to do the small things, because the small things get you ready to do the big things. I think it's about remembering and having things in your life. So it's not just like social media and TikTok, wherever you're looking at, but you're looking at these things that remind you this call to be the kind of person that you want to be. And it's about this responsibility. It's remembering that you have the ability to choose your response. And I think when you bundle those 3 things together, it creates like a practice that helps you grow in courage, like a muscle.
That's great.
Nice.
So that was our last segment. So that was a very profound conversation. So
You know what he just said? It's a mandatory thing in Islam, right?
yeah,
You're walking down the street.
you have to.
The Prophet said the pathway has rights upon you to clean it.
Yeah,
Right? It's like if you're not doing it, you'll be punished for letting go of the responsibility and making somebody else pick your slack. Because there are no coincidences in Islam. If you saw something you were given an opportunity to rise yourself up in character, right? This is an opportunity. It's not any random haphazard event that just happened. So, cleaning Scotland from wherever you go, that's a job of a Muslim. Okay? You need to understand the one symbol of the Prophet ﷺ that everybody knew him for, that wherever he passed, the place got cleaner.
Wow.
The place got better. That's like, it's not some ihsan you're doing. It's not a favor you're doing to anybody. It's part and parcel of why you're sent on this planet. Okay? You're sent on a dirty planet to clean it. You're sent in a place to make it better.
Yeah.
Because if you pass through that and it becomes worse than what it was, you are the problem then. And if it doesn't get better than what it was, then you're a very bigger problem because you let people justify to a pattern of practice, which he said. Okay? So because his children are subconsciously going to do whatever they see him doing consciously. So your people who are going to follow you are naturally going to justify that, you know what? There is reason not to pick up the society of somebody else.
Yeah. And you can be that change in your school. That's the incredible. Do you know, if I can say one last thing, there's a video, and it's. Do you know this? The music, not the musical, the movie, The Greatest Showman. Have you seen that? It's got Hugh Jackman in it, right? Well, there's a video of them, and what they're doing is they're rehearsing, okay, and the little blurb at the start tells you that this is the performance that they need to do to get the money to make the movie. So they've been given a little bit of money to sort of come up with songs and to come up with a story, but they're going to have this one performance where the people who are going to write the check are going to decide, do we think this is good or do we think it's not? So there's a lot that's riding on this one performance. It needs to be really good, okay? And there's a lady, and she's the main singer, and she's speaking to the camera, and she's saying, she's just so nervous. She's never done anything like this before. And she keeps getting this invitation, come out from behind your music stand and just really sing, just really go into it, okay? Now, I watched this a couple of times, probably every month, and it would stir me, and I would always think, why does it stir me so much? And eventually I realized, okay, because what happens is she starts singing, she's very nervous, very nervous. You know what a backing singer is? Just someone in the background. There's one guy in the background, and he has one sentence that he sings by himself. Do you know what he does? While she's singing, he gets his feet up on the chair, and when it's his turn to sing his one sentence, he stands up and he sings it with all he's got. And it's like you feel something ignited. And it's like this one guy had one tiny sentence to do, but I think the whole movie got made because of that guy. Because when he stood up and did his one small thing to the best of his ability, it inspired everybody else. And everybody else did their best. And so I think when you're in your school or in your house or out and about in your life, we shouldn't look down on these small things that we can do. Because like you're saying, you're slowly making the world better. And other people see that and think, goodness, I would like to be a kind of person who make things better. I like who I am when I'm with you. I like how I feel when I'm with you. And I think it's a wonderful thing to offer.
That's great. So,
think about it. No, think about you in school. Think about people around you in school. Think about added their colors around you, and they're going through you to people's bodies, and you're sinking them into your colors. Think about it. Unless you imagine that picture, you're not going to have a strong enough effect on people. Okay. Right now, there's some colors coming out with you and going inside me. The way you look at me, the way you're. Imagine if you're doing something. Look at the intensity, man. Experience the intensity of the flavor. So if you're doing something, you pick it up, you're cleaning up a schoolyard. Okay? All of a sudden, everyone in the school becomes a better human being. Because it's called a proof of concept. Okay? You're not just seeding that concept in, you're actually making them do it. And they'll be doing it. First, they'll be doing it in hiding, in privacy. And then they'll start to muster up the courage to do it in public. You just did in front of them. Okay? So you need to break the shyness of people doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And somebody the first man who does it, breaks the shyness.
Yep.
All of a sudden, people want to say, that's the least we have to do now. The standards go up. Okay? So if you're not the first man through the wall, all right, you did so much damage that you stopped them from becoming the first man of the wall as well. Okay? Because then you give them one more excuse not to do good. So it's a double-edged sword. If you're not going to do good, you actually do bad. Okay? So take the initiative. Make sure you are the initiative. Make sure you are the first drafter. Make sure you're the first to draw the rein. If you're not, do not blame anyone else for being timid, and you needed him to show courage. Do not blame. If you're not the first to draw the rein every single time, you have no right to blame anyone else for not doing the right thing. Okay?
Yeah.
You know, it's not just an honor. It's a basic need.
Awesome. That's...
And you know what? I'm not going to meet you next. Maybe never. So I'm trying to do whatever I'm sharing now. Okay? And because of you, I'm telling you, every 14-year-old is replicating this thought process. Whoever's going to watch this video. It is that beautiful. They're all a single organism around the planet. Whatever change you make starts, it's like a guitar string. You pluck here, notes starts playing there. Okay?
Yeah. So, I want to thank both of you for joining us today and giving us sensational answers to these questions. So, I hope these answers will be a starting point for people to create their own journeys and, carry on.
They're already in the journey, paving the journey.
Yeah.
Paving, grounding themselves stronger. Okay? Making sure they understand that whatever they do in Scotland, I feel the effect directly that very day in Pakistan. No, literally. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Okay?
I've got 2 more questions to ask the both of you. So, first, what are some practical ways that teens can build resilience and discover their purpose? So, Mr. Saho, could you answer that, please, from your perspective?
Purpose and religion. Okay, listen. Purpose. If you do not have the purpose or a strong enough purpose, okay, it is never going to let you build resilience. Resilience is anchored into some sort of an objective that you want to achieve. And you can get some resilience because of, your force of habit or the kind of culture you're coming from. But it is not going to come to a level where you are going to come to the best of yourself. Okay? So every single cell has a certain potential. All these cells combine for a certain objective. Okay? So in a man's journey, in a human life cycle, you need to have a very strong anchor. And let's just say, if you were training for the Scottish Marathon, if there is such a thing, okay, you would have to work out for a certain number of hours every day. And you go through a lot of trouble from zero to getting to a good marathon runner. Focus on what I'm saying, okay? So you have to spend a couple of hours a day. And you just see a lot of people doing it 4 hours a day. You're like, maybe I'm going to come in the top 10 and make the first draft of 5% or whatever. But then all of a sudden news breaks out that, the top, this is, the Olympics that you're supposed to be trained for. All of a sudden, the objective, the purpose changes, and the number of hours from 2 becomes 24. Your diet routine changes from whatever you can casually eat, but now you cannot make a single mistake. Hell, you have to look at every single type of protein going into you because they'll be testing you for it. And also the standards change. Okay? So your number of hours will become number of weeks, number of months before the Olympics. So if you have a bigger purpose, that purpose trains you into a higher level of resilience. And if you do not have a big enough purpose, your body is designed against resilience, okay? Every human being would rather be a bum. Okay? It is our purposes that are driving us out of our homes, our beds to begin with, and then out of our homes to do whatever we can to get enough, back home so that we can deliver. So if you have a very bigger purpose, let's just say take over the world. Take over not just the world. Understand, go up to the universe and make people understand what's going on in the universe, all of a sudden your demands of resilience are through the roof. So if you do not take up your school right now, you do not take up Scotland, you do not take up the planet, you are actually working against resilience. So if, let's just say I give you a target of, you got to top every subject, ace every subject in school. I've capped your resilience. Okay. But if I tell you that you got to invent new things in that book of physics, you got to theorize another equation of mathematics, that school, that country, that planet, all of a sudden you've surpassed. But you got to work a million times harder now. You got to understand really bigger and better things and meet different kind of teachers. You got to go meet the Nobel winners. You got to go meet the Fields Medals winners. So understand how to actually come up with a new equation, right? So all of a sudden, you're going to have the same kind of toll to pay, same kind of toll at body level, mind level, but you'll have a totally different standard to actually aim for. And people within your realm will not even understand how you're progressing so fast and so much. Okay, so the purpose is anchoring the level of resilience, the demand for resilience, obviously. So if you don't have a purpose, I don't know who came up with this question, but somehow, ironically, they couple purpose and resilience. Most of the time, I have to use the word purpose when I'm answering the word how to build resilience in a child. Because if there is no purpose, there is no resilience. Human body is designed against it. Okay? We have to fight our own system to become resilient. We literally don't want to work. The natural need of a human being is to not work. Okay? It's good for us, but we're not designed for it. We came from heaven directly. In heaven, it's not heaven if you have to work. Right? The very definition of heaven is that I don't have to do anything. So since we are the sons of Adam alayhi salam, we are from a planet or system of planets where we cannot work. That progeny is against resilience. This is a test. We better be humble and start working every single day and every single angle to earn at that level where we do not have to work for a single day. Okay? This is the whole loop. So, buddy, that'll work. Okay?
Yeah. So, Mr. Jonesy, how would you answer that question?
Which was about purpose and resilience.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I think that was a very comprehensive answer. So I'm going to try and take it from a different tag. So I think for purpose, sometimes when I'm working with children in schools, when they're thinking of purpose, they're thinking of profession. What should I do with my life? What job should I have? Okay? High schools are asking you to think about your course choices and what job will you have and what will you do after school and all that kind of stuff. And I think for a lot of children, that can be a really hard question because you don't know yet. Right, because you're still a child. I used to think it was like being asked to decide the haircut I was going to have for the rest of my life when I was 14. It's a terrible thought. So probably would have had a haircut I would have regretted, right? So I think in terms of purpose, instead of think of profession, I would think of person. So don't think about what the profession you want to have, think about the person you want to be, and then practice setting for yourself micro purposes, many jobs. So for example, can you make a purpose for yourself that you won't walk past litter on the street? And just practice setting a target for yourself, a purpose for yourself, and achieving it. For example, can you set a purpose for yourself that you'll always wipe down the table after dinner? Or that you'll always empty the dishwasher. When the dishwasher door opens because the dishwasher's finished washing the dishes, right? And my boys sometimes will walk past and just nudge it with their bum so it closes again as if they haven't seen it. So they can set a small purpose for themselves. I'm going to make it my purpose that if I notice the dishwasher's finished cleaning, I'm going to empty it and put it away. Because you know what then happens? You get better at aiming at things. You get better at making a purpose and then achieving it. So I think that's one thing you can do. Don't think profession at this time of your life. That's going to be too difficult. Some people know what job they want to have. But I would think person. What kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to contribute to the world? And then practice setting for yourself little goals and achieving them. That's a great way to grow your character. In terms of resilience, there's a lot you can say about that. So some really practical things first. I think for young people, it's important that they know that they're not their thoughts. So thoughts are just ideas that are happening in their head, right? And so I think a way that we can help our resilience on a very practical level is that we can learn to look at our thoughts instead of from our thoughts. Okay, so here's an example. Let's imagine this is me. In fact, I need somebody. Can I get your phone?
Yeah.
Right. So this is my students at university, and they have to go into schools and they have to give lessons. Okay, and sometimes the lessons don't go very well. So my students have a thought. Your phone's the thought, and the thought is, "Oh my goodness, that went terribly. Maybe I'll never make it as a teacher." Now, if they're looking out from the thought, if they're just accepting the thought's true, if they just look at the thought, they're probably going to feel really tired. They're probably going to feel really low. They're probably not going to feel very excited or motivated. Their brains will literally get dumber. They won't be very creative. They won't think of ideas of making the lesson better. So if they look from the thought, chances are they're going to get worse as a teacher. But here's what they can do. Instead of looking from the thought, they can look at the thought. They can just look at the thought, and the thought is, "Oh my goodness, that didn't go really well. Maybe I won't be a good teacher." And when they look at the thought, they can think things like, "Do I believe this thought?" And they might think, "Well, no, because I've seen my teacher and she did a few bad lessons, and actually I can tell you what went wrong and I could fix it tomorrow." Do you see? So sometimes a really practical thing that we can do to help our resilience on a practical level, instead of looking from the thought, learn to notice, "Oh my goodness, I'm just thinking a thought." So you can look at the thought. What do I think about this thought? Is this thought helpful? Is it true? Is it accurate? So that's a really practical way that we can develop our resilience. I think another thing about resilience is that it's interesting. I have a slightly different perspective, and actually, in some ways, there's a concept that's beyond resilience now, and it's called anti-fragility. Right? So this is an interesting concept. So if I broke my arm and I had a stookie on, like a big plaster, when it first came on, it would fit my arm, right? But after 6 weeks, there'd be a gap there. Do you know why that is?
Why?
Why would the stookie go from fitting tight around my bicep to then not fitting after 6 weeks? Do you know?
You get old.
Well, not in 6 weeks. But what happens, it's called atrophy. What happens is my bicep that I work out now so it's big and strong, for 6 weeks it's not used, and so it literally wastes away. It wastes away, okay? So we have got systems in our body that aren't resilient, because resilient just means it can endure damage. So for example, your phone is fragile. If I dropped your phone, it would break. It's fragile, okay? You put a plastic case on it. The plastic case is resilient. That means I won't do it hard. That means it can stand up against bad treatment. But does your phone benefit from the bad treatment? Does it get better in any way because it gets bumped and bashed? No, but listen, my arms, my muscles, when I work them, they don't just endure the challenge, they actually benefit from them, they grow. My brain, if I work it hard, my brain actually benefits from that and it grows. My bones get denser and thicker, my cardiovascular system, even my immune system. So my body is not actually resilient, it's actually anti-fragile. My body as a person benefits from appropriate challenge. So this is something to think about when we're talking about resilience, is actually we are strong, right? There's a strength in us. And sometimes we think, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. But when we find ourselves engaging in doing it, we develop muscles and abilities we didn't know we had. So that's one thing. And this other thing is, resilience sometimes can be an unhelpful idea, because there's some things that we shouldn't endure. There's some things we should actually challenge. So say, for example, there was something going on in your class. There was some unkind behavior. It wouldn't be good just to be resilient and hunker down and endure that. Sometimes you need to just say, that's not right. That's not okay. I shouldn't have to endure this. It should be challenged. So I think in terms of purpose then, to kind of pull that together, that was a great answer about the big purpose. I think on a really small level, sometimes for children of your age or young people of your age, purpose can go to profession. That can be a difficult question. So I would say, instead of thinking profession, think person, and then set yourself micro targets. You want to aim micro purposes, because then you get better at setting and achieving purposes. And then in terms of resilience, I've got those two ideas for you. The first is, thoughts are just ideas that are happening in your head. So instead of looking from the thought, look at the thought. And then remember that actually resilience is something that we were made for, we benefit from. All the systems in our body benefit from appropriate challenge. But some challenges are not appropriate, and sometimes we actually need to just say that's not right. I shouldn't have to endure this or be resilient in this. Sometimes we just need to say that's not okay.
That's great.
Okay, sorry for banging your spoon.
It's fine. So, our next question is, what are some of the biggest challenges facing Gen Z, and how can we overcome them? So, Miss Sal, would you like to give your answer for that?
Gen Z. You know what Gen Z is?
Yeah.
What's a Gen Z?
Like someone who's born from like 2010 or 9
What's that?
as Gen Z.
So, see, every 100 years, there is an opportunity. Every 100 years. Okay. And I'll tell you why it took 100 years. Because an average lifespan of a human being is about 78, 80. Okay. Give and take. Every 100 years, it is a single generation that's going to achieve a certain age. They're going to have that career at their, epitome. And like right now, the 60-year-olds right now, they're the people who are actually calling the shots in every country, every business, so on and so forth. Social systems are run by these old folks. So they were teenagers sometime, right? In time, in 1940s, 50s, in the 60s. These are the people who are really coming about. Whatever the world is going through is either being controlled by them or whatever is happening is done by them, okay? So Gen Z right now is going to be effective in, let's just say, 2050. Okay? And they'll be at the peak of their whatever power they can possibly achieve. Because old folks right now, they've died out. Okay? And Gen Z's, the generation prior to them, will be handing over the world to them. You see the point in time now?
Yeah.
No, but what I'm going to say right now, imagine the planet Earth in the hand of Gen Z, the 60-year-old Gen Z. They were 60 in some kind, right?
Yes.
So when you say what are the problems that Gen Z is facing right now, you need to understand that they do not know what's going to happen in 2060. The unpredictability of this planet and the opportunity and the threat, or in other words, they're not prophesizing the future in a way that's going to enable them to develop right now. So much so that they've actually made it an honor. It's like honor among teens, right? That if they can make it fast and quick and find the finest shortcut, it'll be recognized as some sort of an achievement. Even though the one thing they'll never be able to stop is time. And they are going to reach 60 in some time. And you need to understand what is that issue I'm actually trying to address. So if you are a bum right now, you're lazy, you're not accustomed to books, which Gen Z cannot, because you're kind of so used to YouTube, you didn't open the books. YouTube is the shortcut, making you use the shortcuts to get knowledge. And knowledge is the one thing you cannot expedite. There's no crash course for wisdom. You know what wisdom is?
Yeah.
What is wisdom? You really know what wisdom is? Okay, what is wisdom?
Knowledge.
No, it's not knowledge, see? Knowledge can lead to intelligence. And a guy can be intelligent and not wise at the same time. A guy can be intelligent and not wise. But a guy cannot be wise and not intelligent. You see how big wisdom is? It's a big asset. And wisdom can only be achieved if you do the grunt work yourself. You understand me? And YouTube is stopping you from grunt works. To read every page and flip. Read the book by page by page. Go through teachers. Understand through experience. Do the work yourself. Okay? You need to understand that. YouTube might give you higher intelligence in the field, but it'll make you It'll not let you be wise in the things that are around that field. So Gen Z probably, God forbid, will be the dumbest generation. Dumbest, because that's the opposite of the wise, right? They'll be the most inapt people to run countries, run businesses, run societies, and run the bigger systems which connect everybody together. Okay? So you need to understand, right now, we're going to pass the baton, and you're going to throw it away because you're going to have to watch that Netflix series. And I'll be like, I gave you a baton of the planet, man. And you'll be like, yeah. Just took a couple of hours, man. Don't worry, the muscle is still burning. Don't worry. And it's like, dude, it's not about how much, you can do with the baton. It's what the baton is for. Okay? It represents something. The whole world is dependent on your performance. Be like, yeah, you know what? I come first. My 10 little players of dopamine come first. I gotta satisfy, and I'm gonna do it my way. And I need a shortcut. And you are gonna come up with a shortcut of getting that baton from this point to that point. But that's the exact opposite of why we came up with the baton. It has to go to everybody. Everyone's got to see what the whole game is. And right now, Gen Z is going through quick bucks, hence crypto. It's going through quick accesses, hence audiobooks, hence you know what dopamine is?
No, really.
Yeah, you got to read it up. Okay, so the dilated dopamine receptors are making you more hungry for attention, more hungry for recognition, more entitlements, hence making you arrogant, hence making you lazy, hence making you selfish. Okay, the more dopamine you require, the more selfish you become. Okay, so you need your entitlement. You need a Mr. in caps written by your name. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get that?
Yeah.
So the more I'm gonna give you knowledge, the less you would want it. That's dopamine.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the curse of dopamine. Otherwise, the natural cycle is the more you give me knowledge, the more thirsty I should become. But dopamine does the exact opposite. Okay? It gets you satisfied too soon. Okay? So that's what Gen Z and boys your age are gonna go through. So what's the solution? You gotta go old school, buddy. No, I mean it. You gotta go old school. You gotta read books. In 20 years from now, there'll come a time, I promise you this right now, that there'll be two boys competing for the same sort of position. One is gonna come through the books, one is gonna come through YouTube, and you won't have a chance in hell to compete with that kind of muscle to mine, because he'll be going through the books. He'll have met enough teachers. He would have put enough downtime on the street, at the work, on the cubicles, inside environments. You'll be looking all of those videos, documentaries. Like, I know everything about it. And yeah, you might know everything about it. You do not know how any of this actually comes together. Okay, and that's where you're going to lose. Every YouTuber is going to lose with every book reader. Any given fight. Okay? Any given fight. And every book reader is going to lose with everyone who's actually doing it on his own in any given fight. Imagine that. So from people who used to do it, became just people who read about it, and then now people who watch about it.
All right.
Okay?
But you know how you said it's a shortcut? YouTube's a shortcut for people who don't read books. But what if they try to read books but they can't understand it as well as YouTube?
What's the difference between YouTube giving it knowledge?
Like, what if YouTube explains it better than the books?
Okay. Have you ever seen a movie which was made on a book?
Yeah.
Give me a name.
Wonder?
I wouldn't know that. Give me a name. Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Have you seen Harry Potter?
No.
You haven't seen Harry Potter, the movies?
No.
Whoa, okay. Okay.
It's not
That's
interesting.
worse. Okay, well, okay. Let me try and
Look at Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, yes. Have you seen the movie? What kind of movie you've been watching, man? Okay, now listen. When you read Harry Potter and you see the movie,
Yeah.
you would want to kill the director. Okay? That's what YouTube is doing to actual knowledge. Once you read the book and then you see a movie, obviously there are reasons why they can't put everything in the movie. Like, it's, it's going to be a long movie, no one watch it. And, they just try and get the best out of it. But they lose every single thing, which is what the book is standing on, what the writer was thinking. Okay? Of course, they call in the writer and they make a movie. And the writer's like, that's the best you can do with the kind of bucks that you have. So you need to understand, if you read a book, and you will understand that, if you read a book and somebody makes a movie out of it, only then you'll understand what I'm trying to tell you right now. Okay? So don't be a YouTuber, be a reader. Okay? Every invention that you're using in your home right now was invented by book readers. The quality of science has gone down. Quality of literature has gone down. Quality of entertainment has gone down. Because people have stopped doing it, okay, and trying to come up with shortcuts now. Every single thing is going down. Because we have given up on that effort. Okay? That's what Gen Z's, aiming for. Least effort, most output. Okay?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, it's not good to find shortcuts. It's not good. Okay? And it's certainly not an honor.
okay. So, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, I like that answer. So what do I think is the main challenge that Gen Z faced? Okay, I think there's two. Okay, I think we're going to talk about relationship and we're going to talk about sacrifice. So, do you know what dialogue is?
Yeah.
It's got two people talking. Yeah. What's a monologue? No? From one person's talking. Okay? So I think one of the problems that Gen Z faces, instead of dialogue, they monologue. So instead of being engaged in a conversation with something else, they're just speaking to themselves. So let me give you an example. And a lot of this comes to what do they think is true or where are they getting truth from? Okay? Now, there was a time when I did a lot of weightlifting and I was quite big. Okay? And at that time, to support all those muscles, I had to eat a lot of food. A ridiculous amount of food. You need to picture a ridiculous amount of food in your head. I was eating more food than that. Okay? Now, here's the crazy thing. Even when I was eating this ridiculous amount of food, do you know what communication I would still get from myself to myself? I'm hungry. Now, later on, I was getting into running and I was trimming down and I was eating less food. And do you know what communication I would get from myself to myself? I'm hungry. And I'd be looking at my fitness plan that said I only need to eat this much food. And this is all I need to have optimum performance. And I would get this communication here, this good advice, and then I would get communication from myself to myself. And the communication from myself to myself was I wanted to eat more. And I realized I got this communication from myself to myself, whether I was eating a lot, tons and tons and tons, or whether I was eating a little. And it made me think, how reliable is this communication that I get from myself to myself? That's just monologuing. That's just me speaking to myself. I think Gen Z, one of the problems that they have is they get communication from themselves to themselves. And instead of looking at that and thinking, what is it about this? What is maybe some good advice? What are some people I could speak to? What is some wisdom that I could receive? Is they take this information that they get from themselves, whether those are feelings or thoughts or ideas, and they say, I think this is what's true. And I think they can get themselves in all sort of bother about that. We need to be careful sometimes about the communication that we get from ourselves to ourselves. Now, alongside that then comes this idea of sacrifice. Do you watch Netflix?
Yeah.
Do you like any of the sports documentaries?
Depends on which ones.
I love them. And it actually doesn't depend on the sport. I just love all the sports ones. So there's one that's a golf one called Full Swing. Have you seen it? So I don't like golf, but there's a golf course right beside my house. But it turns out if you take a golf competition, which lasts 3 days, and you edit it down to 7 minutes, that's the best 7 minutes of TV you can watch. So I was loving it. Now let's imagine after watching this, I decide I'm going to be a golf player. And so I say to you, I've decided I'm going to sacrifice to become a golf player. I want to be a golf professional. And you're like, wow, that's incredible. What have you decided to do? And I said, well, I'm taking it seriously. I'm going to do 5 hours every evening. You're like, 5 hours? Goodness me. What is it you're planning to do for 5 hours? I'm going to eat chips. I'm going to watch my favourite golf competitions on the TV. And then I'm going to get better. Now you're smiling because you're thinking, that's not going to work. Right? That's not the sacrifice that's required. That's what you're noticing. There's a sacrifice that would be required for you to become a great golf player, and it's not the one that you're offering. But I would say to you, that's the one I want to give. That's how I want the world to work. I want the world to work so that I'm going to eat food and watch my favorite golf programs on YouTube, and for me to become better. And so I think the two problems that Gen Z are wrestling with, or two problems, not the two problems, but two problems that they're wrestling with, is they're confused around the communication they get from themselves to themselves, and they end up just speaking to that instead of dialoguing and with wisdom, with the world, with faith, with wise people. I think that's one problem. And I think another problem is they're not prepared to offer the appropriate sacrifice. Because to offer the appropriate sacrifice requires humility. All appropriate sacrifice is offered in humility, because it's not saying this is the sacrifice that I want to give, sitting on the sofa, eating chips, watching golf, but it's the one that's required, and I'm prepared to yield, to kneel, and to offer. And so I think there's these two things that are getting in the way, the sort of sense of my voice and my feelings and my insight and the place that has, and then actually the ability to participate in a functional way with the world, where they offer the kind of sacrifices that moves them forward and makes the world better. So I think those would be the two things that I think Gen Z could get help with. We do get insight from within ourselves. We do have a voice within us that can speak truth, but we can also have just a lot of garbage in there. And so I think we need to not monologue, we need to dialogue. And I think we need to get better at offering appropriate sacrifice, but that requires humility.
Thank you very much. You too, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luke.
Okay, so to our listeners, just remember that these questions are not just intellectual exercises. They are invitations to grow, seek, and connect. So thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.